boys and girls, assorted pronouns, what the fuck is poppin'? Welcome back to Degreelessness, the channel that the bright center of the universe is farthest from. I'm Shanghai Pete, thank you so much for chilling with us tonight. Unfortunately, we simply do not have the time for a quick recap of the week because it was singularly dominated by BLIZZCON, and we need every minute we have to get as deep inside that as possible. And yes, we might as well get it out of the way first. Apparently, I'm an even bigger idiot than anyone thought because I overestimated Blizzard yet again by a staggering, catastrophic, inhuman margin. Even given multiple hours, I don't think I could scrape the surface of how monstrously let down I was by almost every single thing that I saw and experienced at BlizzCon this year. I thought for sure Blizzard was well and fully aware of exactly how disgraced and reviled their company and brand had become over the past year. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and that's my fault. I thought there was no way in hell that they hadn't prepared the most legendary, mind-bending comeback presentation ever conceived of to unveil at BlizzCon this year. Oh my good, sweet, merciful God, was I wrong. Now, I don't want to bury the lead, so before we get into my nightmarish experience on the ground at BlizzCon, let's quickly go over our first impressions of everything we announced and what sort of predictions we got right, what we got wrong. So, first, what did we get right? Sadly, both a lot and barely anything, as it turns out. First of all, there was definitely no WoW 2. Holy shit, was there not WoW 2? Oh my god, were we wrong about that. We also, however, predicted Overwatch 2, complete with lazy design, barely distinguishable from the already existing Overwatch, and featuring even more virtue signaling that is so severe it actually bends the laws of physics so that it can be allowed to exist in our reality. And that's exactly what we got. So hooray for Blizzard jerking themselves off with our money. Next up, we also predicted the most basic bare-bones holding pattern maintenance expansion for World of Warcraft that we'd seen in years. And again, that's exactly what we got. No new race, no new class, no new features except for a rip-off of the Diablo 3 Rift system that was apparently inspired by roguelike games. The Christ is this? I've got nothing against roguelikes, but I don't want them in World of Warcraft. I fail to see how moving farther and farther away from core MMO gameplay systems is a good design decision for people making an MMO. Blizzard is seriously next level lazy with this garbage. Unbelievable. And just a small bit of good news though, we did in fact get the Diablo 4 announcement that I think everybody, including us, was predicting. Fortunately, it was super awesome. Ultra dark, gritty vibe, the engine was super smooth, and most importantly, it evoked a great Diablo 2 feel, which I suspect was far from accidental. Diablo 4 was my game of the show by far. That is the only good news we do have though, since Blizzard is so repugnantly avaricious, they couldn't even be bothered to do a Diablo 2 remaster. And everything else they mentioned, I couldn't care less about. Blah, 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 give us your money, blah, 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 buy some Overwatch merch, blah, 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 buy some stupid toys at a 500% markup that would be more at home as a prize in a crane machine at a carnival. I'm just so tired of it. Speaking of being tired, I do also want to touch on the grotesquely insulting apology J. Allen Brack had the audacity to push out of his asshole in front of 5,000 people while looking like something from the cover of a geriatric romance novel. If you have enough good sense to be watching my videos in the first place, you're likely a sane and rational individual who doesn't need a systematic minute-by-minute recap and breakdown on that travesty in order to understand exactly why it was so insulting and craven. Obviously, he didn't mean a word of it. Obviously, he only cares about something as far as it impacts the company's bottom line, which, we admittedly can't blame him for, but of course is really repugnant behavior. And obviously, that statement was crafted by some of the finest minds in public relations to minimize any actual liability or compel any real change on behalf of Blizzard. You don't need me to tell you that entire apology was a pile of refuse. It wasn't even an apology anyway. To paraphrase Jim Sterling, it was just placation. We all know Blizzard will never admit that they took the actions they did because of pressure from China. The thing is, I don't even want an apology. What I want is for Blizzard to act. Words mean absolutely nothing if they're not backed up by behavior. I don't care if you spout some carefully crafted PR speech to a bunch of spineless idiot fanboys who would clap for your dick if you whipped it out. That's easy. It requires no risk and compels no action. You want my forgiveness? It's very simple, and there's actually no need for any speeches or disingenuous posturing. Ready? Here it is. Unban BlizzCon and the casters, and stop betraying the core values of our country just so you can hoover up more money from an authoritarian communist state, just like a sad stripper desperately grasping for fistfuls of singles. I really don't think that's too much to ask, but apparently Blizzard disagrees. Gross. Okay, with that out of the way, it is story time, kids, so gather around. Shanghai Daddy is gonna tell you a tale. It was a bright and sunny morning as a very hungover Shanghai Pete dragged his pathetic viscera over to the security line on opening day of BlizzCon. And it was still a bright and sunny morning 5 minutes later when he dragged it back to the car after being thrown out when the security personnel found the weed he'd left in his bag. That was how my BlizzCon experience began, and it was all downhill from there. Eventually, with the security obstacles surmounted, my guild and I finally got into the convention proper. Naturally, the first thing we did was head over to the main hall where the opening ceremony, which traditionally is home to the majority of big announcements, was about to begin. And here is where it started to become very clear that there was a serious problem indeed. As we approached the entrance to the main hall, we were greeted with a huge sign that read, "Overflow line begins here," accompanied by a smarmy security douche that informed us that no one else would be granted entry to the main hall, and we would have to watch the opening ceremony from a different hall. Wait, what? We paid over $200 to see this nonsense live, in person, not to watch it on a goddamn screen barely bigger than my projector back at the crib. And of course, once we finally found seats in a hall that we were so graciously permitted to enter, we ended up being stuck behind an effing pillar that obscured the majority of the stunningly mediocre screen upon which we were forced to watch all the action from. And the Diablo 4 cinematic aside, which was absolutely incredible, calling the rest underwhelming doesn't even come close to accurately describing my reaction. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I was under the assumption that paying for a BlizzCon ticket entitled me to, attend BlizzCon, not watch the whole thing from a screen like I could easily and much more comfortably and cheaply do from the comfort of my own home. So maybe it's my fault for assuming that. Maybe it's my fault for being a scrub, plebeian, non-celebrity asshole who refuses to prostrate themselves on the altar of Blizzard's greed by offering them an even larger, even more outrageous sum of money for a portal pass. Yes, you heard right, the Portal Pass, which I'm told would have provided me the benefits of experiencing the convention in the way most people would have assumed the already substantial amount of $200 would have done. Apparently not, but more on that later. So we sat behind a pillar and watched the opening ceremony that we'd all spent hundreds of dollars to fly across the country and attend in person on a screen. However, that actually turned out to be a good thing, as I'm told J. Allen Brack jerked himself off all over the front rows of the main hall while performing a horrific rendition of "The Disgusting Communist Goon Who Is Wrong." Anyway, the opening ceremony ends, and obviously I'm already furious at this point. I'm trying to keep it together though, as all the panels I was really looking forward to watching didn't start for another hour. So we navigate through hordes of truly the most extreme examples of fringe humanity I have ever seen in a desperate and ultimately futile quest to find something to do that didn't require we spend an hour waiting in line. After abandoning that doomed mission, we made our way back to the main hall to find seats for the panels that were about to begin. Once again, to my complete and utter astonishment, we were denied entry, as it was already at capacity. At this point, I'm so appalled and outraged that my guildmates almost had to restrain me in order to prevent a homicide. Already at capacity? It hadn't even occurred to me that something like that was even a possibility. I was being told that despite paying as much money as, mostly, everyone else to attend this convention, I would not be permitted to view the parts of it that I was most looking forward to. The parts that were the very reason I had paid to be there in the first place. I'm quite certain that had I not been basically catatonic and drooling from all the edibles I'd eaten, I probably would have murdered someone. Okay, so we can't watch the panels live, even though they were happening less than 100 yards from where we were standing. What about just finding a comfortable seat in another hall and watching it on one of the hundreds of screens peppering almost every inch of the building? Nope, couldn't do that either, because for some godforsaken reason that I will never understand, every single one was displaying either advertisements, insipid ramblings from unqualified morons shamelessly defending Blizzard on the live stream, or effing Hearthstone. So, you know what we had to do? We had to watch the panels from our phones on a bench outside. And we still missed the majority of them because the connection was so bad it kept buffering, and it was so loud there that we couldn't hear dick. Even the subtitles were lagged so severely that it made everything nigh incomprehensible. Here I was, ground zero of BlizzCon, less than a few hundred yards from what I'd paid to see, trying desperately to instead watch it all from my phone. I could have done this from my freaking couch for free while getting a blowjob and holding a bong. Insanity. Eventually we gave up on that exercise in futility, and while the only panels we wanted to see were now long over, Blizzard's raping of us certainly wasn't. We couldn't make it 20 feet in that place without a huge sign trying to get us to shell out even more money being shoved in our face. Yep, the Blizzard loyalty tax must be paid, whether it's $20 for a burger and fries or $50 for an actual real-life cardboard loot box containing a bunch of garbage you wouldn't normally pay even $5 for. Yep, you guessed it, the Dark Moon Fair area was our next destination. Some of my guildmates, for truly inexplicable reasons, had their hearts set on one of those $50 boxes of IRL disappointment called loot crates. So, we head over to the Dark Moon Fair where they're being sold, only to find out that, uh-oh, they're sold out. Why, you ask? Well, because they sold all of them already with no per person limit to Portal Pass holders who got there first by skipping the line everyone else without a Portal Pass was forced to wait in. The Portal Pass strikes again, it would seem. For those of you not already aware, the Portal Pass is Blizzard's brilliant new plan to squeeze even more money out of their loyal fan base at BlizzCon this year. $550 is the low price to enter the convention before everyone else, get seats before everyone else, skip lines ahead of everyone else, and buy all the limited merch before anyone else has a chance to. The $230 the rest of us already spent is apparently not enough anymore. That $230 no longer grants us access to everything. We might get locked out of the main hall where most of the main events are. We might miss out on purchasing merchandise with limited stock, or have to wait in line to play Diablo for a goddamn hour and a half longer than other people who gave Blizzard more money. So, that, in a nutshell, was our experience at BlizzCon. Screwed over and treated like second-class citizens at every turn and denied access to the events and experiences that Blizzard had sold to us because they had tricked other people to give them even more money than we were willing to. An absolute disgrace. So, moving on, I think it's just about time to wrap this garbage up. Suffice it to say, most of the stuff they announced was completely uninteresting to me, save for Diablo 4 and the new WoW expansion, Shadowlands. Diablo 4, admittedly, was fantastic, but Shadowlands just looks like a boring, anemic expansion with barely any new features they could articulate and no new race or new classes. Also, can we just get rid of the shameless and lazy Deus Ex Machina of Sylvanas, for God's sake? I'm so tired of her being the fulcrum upon which apparently everything in this universe now rests. Overall, not only did this experience fail to ingratiate me towards Blizzard again, I would say it actually made me even more furious and disillusioned with Blizzard than I already was. Way to go, assholes, you had your shot and you blew it. Anyway, that's our show. Thank you so much for chilling with us. We love you today. We love you all the way. And don't you worry, we'll be back in a few with another screaming, ignorant rant about why the new WoW expansion Shadowlands is so woefully, pathetically inadequate. So you can look forward to more baseless hate, rational logic, and harsh truths coming up soon right here on Degreelessness. And remember, don't like, don't comment, and please don't subscribe because we've been gored to death on the horns of plenty.